Danny, get in the chopper!
A digital psychedelic revolution of the mind.
Paleolithic emotions.
Medieval institution. Godlike technology.
It's time to start thinking globally.
And acting locally.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Blessed by the name of Benjamin, this is Ben.
And Ben.
Riding the AI wave. A great Maui day to thee. This is Ben.
And Ben.
Riding the AI wave. Welcome, and we are excited for this special opportunity to sit down with an expert in his field. But to start off, let's start off with a poem, Ben. Do you love poems? I love poems.
Oh yeah, I had this poem. I think it describes a lot of the stuff I see here on Maui, and it's about palm trees. So I want to start off with it. O palm tree tall with leaves of emerald green, a symbol of the tropics and sun, thy presence on the shore, a regal queen, a masterpiece of nature never done. Thy fronds do sway, a graceful dance they make, to songs of ocean breeze and seagulls' cry, a sight that leaves the mind completely awake, and heart with joy so full it seems to fly. Thou art a solace to thy weary soul, to the weary soul, a refuge to ones that seek thy shade, a friend to those who, who like to be made whole, a place where sweetest memories are made. O palm tree tall with leaves of emerald green, thou art a wonder and a beauty seen.
Thank you.
All right, well, yeah, I didn't write that. I prompted that, actually. I was just blown away by ChatGPT's little poem. I was like, thought I'd share it. And yeah, I mean, I haven't really prompted ChatGPT with many challenging poem opportunities or whatever, but I was just kind of like almost moved by that emotionally. Just, I don't know. That was a computer that seemed to have a really good grasp about like what a palm tree is used for, and like a really good conceptual, you know, like except for this shade part, you don't go to the shade, but like it's where memories are made on the beach. And yeah, what did you think of it in terms of the words? I don't know, what did you guys think of it? Solid? Yeah. All right. Thoughts?
A poem. Put together words and concepts, connecting.
So I guess it didn't emotionally get you guys as much as it did me.
And that's the beauty of art, isn't it?
It was, yeah.
You know, with art, it may hit you in a way that might not do anything for someone else, and vice versa. And each of those expressions and what they have to give us.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. I think you have to modify the prompts to fit what you want, and not what somebody else wants. It's kind of how you're expressing yourself within the prompt of ChatGPT. But yeah, let's talk about our guest. How do you know your guest? Our guest. Well,
And welcome back. Welcome to all. And thank you for checking in on Ben
And Ben.
on riding the AI wave. And today we have a special guest, Thomas Olthafer. Tom, welcome.
Thank you.
And Tom, I'm really excited for you to be sitting down with us today because of your innovative ideas and perspective and passion about the regenerative principle and your specialty of the regenerative principle in soil. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, it started at a very young age, and not only was my dad a good role model, but also my grandfather. And I have a poem, a short story that tells about his commitment to soil. And the title of it is, I Till a Small Bit of Soil. He was an immigrant from Germany when he was just a teenager. So he says, I till a small bit of soil in America. My partner is my wife. The creator is our landlord. I use the soil, the rain, the snow, the forest, and the sun to bring forth my harvest. These are also the tools of the Almighty. Thus, I am a fellow craftsman with God in nature. Also, I realize I have responsibilities to God as well as to my fellow man. I recognize my duty to take good care of the acres entrusted to me, that I may at last turn them over to the generation following me, more fertile than when they came under my husbandry. So that has been a lot of the core of a lot of my contemplation and study and experience, farming and becoming more and more knowledgeable through reading things and the new discoveries. Yes, I guess we could call it discoveries, but it's always been there. It's just that farmers are becoming more and more conscious of how the soil and plants and everything all work together with nature to bring about that harvest.
Because it takes a lot more than just the farmer, reaping the spoils of the harvest, of the bloom, of all of this work that it went into to cultivate that land. The co-workership of the bees and the pollinators and the sun and the thousands of years it took for that soil to come about to even grow the harvest.
That's right. There's several authors and people that I've talked to and read their books, and they refer to the humans as a custodial species, that we are servants of the land. Our purpose here is just not to take everything that we can and make money from it, but it is to keep nature in a regenerative state where nature itself is providing nourishing and rich in all the, not only just calories, but also the other micro compounds that gives the plant immunity to certain insects and molds and blights and things like that. But also those same compounds, when we eat that well-crafted food, then it also gives immunity and health to whoever eats it, including us humans.
So I'm hearing the stronger the soil and the environment for that food growing, the stronger it will make us who eat that. The more rich the nutrients and the more rich the soil, the more healthy and nutritious, more full of life that we as humans consuming that will take on.
I feel like we don't appreciate soil at all. What goes into it. I had no understanding of like that it requires nutrients. Like I think for certain things, if you plant them, it'll just poison the soil, right? For like the next, I think some really profitable crops like maybe ginger, or you would probably know better, but it kind of, you have to not only think about what you're planting now, but you have to think about the next harvest and the next harvest, how that's going to affect that. And even just like the ruts that you plant, but that would never even occur to me if I hadn't really grown up in Kansas, probably. But even growing up in Kansas, you know, a lot of this stuff you wouldn't realize at all. So what are some things that you have to think about in terms of like when you plant it, thinking about the next harvest, or just making sure the soil is all right for that, or the health of the soil?
Well, it's not in many cases, it's not a single crop that we plant, but it is multi-species. And farmers have done trials with this where they plant.
Why is it multi-species? Is it because of that, or?
Yes, that's the point that I'm getting to, because what they've done is it's like a prairie. That's nature's, because there's multiple grasses, there's forbs, flowers, all these different, and all of these plants actually have deeper roots. They're all at different levels. So then there's a deep soil structure that is able to absorb more water. And so when you plant multi-species, these plants also create certain sugars that they exude through the roots, what's it called, exudates, and that feeds the microorganisms in the soil, which then also synthesize the nutrients that are readily available to the plants. And so when you have a multi-species, they grow at different levels. They're actually, storing water, their nutrients, and actually even when there's a drought, a field that's in multiple species will be still green, whereas single crops, those, if they're just by themselves, they all wilt or even die.
What's the name of it when you plant multi-species as opposed to one species? Is it like
monocropping?
Is it
versus?
Well, just a single is monocropping. So you plant a field of soybeans or a field of pineapple or wherever you're at, whatever location. Just planting one crop. That's monospecies. But if you interplant, so even though you might have corn growing tall, you could have a clover or something else growing in between the corn, which then also, or like alfalfa, which is actually a legume that has nitrogen fixing bacteria on the nodules, that creates these nodules on the plant roots, which is then shared with the crop. So that is a readily form of nitrogen that the plant can absorb. And whereas if farmers put on a synthetic fertilizer, the nitrites and the nitrates the plant actually has to work and use some of its energy in order to convert that to a usable form, whereas the organic, that is bound up in the bodies of the dead microbes and also of the plant material. That is, plant can just eat that right away and it gets energy from it.
So you're using the whole ecosystem,
right,
instead of just
Right.
Yeah, because it kind of feeds back into itself. The more the more nutrients offered, it kind of just it benefits everybody instead of.
That's right, and it's shared, and that's what
Yeah.
part of the mycorrhizal fungi does. Is it can transfer nutrients from one end of the field to the other.
But I feel like it wasn't always like that. Yeah.
Well,
Wasn't it like farmers didn't they just plant like one crop for the longest time? When did this revolution come about? I mean, was it like this throughout your entire life where you did this, or
Well,
what do you see other farmers doing?
In some places, well, you mentioned Kansas, which is a big wheat growing
Yeah, it was
area,
monocropping,
and a lot of the immigrants coming from Russia, they brought their wheat with them, and that grew very well in Kansas. And by continually plowing and continually planting the same crop, then it depleted the soils, and then when the drought came, then then they had the big dust bowl, and so that's what
Dust bowl. Yeah.
that's going back into the 30s, 40s, when they had the dust bowl.
So after the Dust Bowl, did they realize about monocropping and like maybe we should be planting more than one crops or more than one crop?
Well,
Was it?
some of them, the ones who stayed or could survive, a lot of them, went bankrupt, and they went to California.
Yeah.
but
And your dad was in Germany, so he didn't realize, or
well,
who was that poem by? Your dad or your grandfather?
that's my grandfather, yes,
Yeah, okay.
Carl. But
My grandfather's name is Carl, so it's a lot of name coincidences. Your
a lot of
my middle name is actually Carl.
So, but yes, my grandfather in Germany, they farmed very much with different crops and rotations and those kind of things there, and he brought that with him, and that's when he started farming. He had first farm he was on. It was a run down. It was eroded. He said it wouldn't even grow white beans. It would just. And so he planted. He got. I think from the Tennessee Valley Authority, there was a dam that put in down there, and they were able to, had the energy to make a phosphate fertilizer. I think that's correct. But anyway, he put some of that in. He put in some, alfalfa, clover, whatever, and then he plowed it down, so all that went into the soil, and the neighbors thought he was insane.
That he would grow a crop only for it to be put back into the soil.
But then the next year when he planted again, he had this wonderful, wonderful crop, much better than the first crop. and all his neighbors still had nothing, it was so, but.
That's a great story.
And that was your father?
That was
Or
Carl, my granddad,
your
yeah.
grandfather.
Your great-grandfather.
Who moved to Wisconsin, to
Right.
southwest
Yep,
Wisconsin,
that's correct.
and completely changed the platform for how
Right.
they were growing their food in the area.
Did he buy the neighbor's land after?
Well, he did buy 2 other farms, by the time, when I was a teenager, he had,
Literally valuable lessons.
right, he had much more acres and farming very prosperously,
And when did the contour farming come into play? Was that George or Carl that started to plant according to the topography of the land itself?
Right, that was in Wisconsin. There was a movement through the Natural Resources Conservation Service. It's called NRCS now. It's a little bit different name, but it's the same thing. But he had the idea. He was what they would refer to as the initial. I'm sorry, I forgot the name right now, but they were the ones who actually went in and asked for help with doing these things, rather than being, trying to convince that that's what they should do. So he knew that, and then he got help with that, and he laid out the contours on the land, because that was one of the things about it. He wanted to stop erosion. He wanted to have the most infiltration when the water came down. He wanted to stay there and go into the soil. So
It's kind of like rice paddies, right? Well, you have different levels. They don't call those in Wisconsin. They call it in Wisconsin rice paddies.
so-
No, I'm kidding.
And then later it was called Coon Valley in the Driftless area of Wisconsin, and where there's a lot of hills and coulees and things like that, and so there was a lot of steep hills, and so that's where they implemented a lot of that. They had the contours on the hills, and which was they were able to conserve a lot of soil that way.
Sounds like a lot of work. Like
Well, initially putting it in does take a little effort
to harvest even. I mean,
and well.
harvest and to put it in.
Because it was
Well,
it was still farming in the tractor in the lanes, but the lanes, instead of going straight in a box and row by row, it was still rows, but it was following the contour of the
Follow
land.
contour as much as possible.
And so
Yes.
working with the land to maximize your yield, even if it didn't fit in a cookie cutter, box kind of way. And so not only was it more efficient, but I'm hearing it's also healthier for the land, retaining the nutrients, retaining the soil, and keeping that life there on that plot of land versus getting washed away.
Did that have did that have any effects on the ecosystem, the contouring of the land, because of the erosion? Maybe the erosion mixed things up more. Not,
Well, yeah, the erosion
Still had
because
erosion, probably.
that's where all the good nutrients and all the microbes were in that topsoil. That's that to my grandfather that was black gold. But when your water infiltrates into the soil, then you have grass waterways, so it doesn't erode your waterways, and then the water, when it gets down the stream, it's still clear water. So then you don't have then if it's a cold stream there, then you still have your trout, you still have the ecosystem for the fish and everything else. So
Maybe just try turning this one off because we're getting a lot of ambient sound all over.
okay.
Just see where that is. That's up. Other way.
Okay, I turned your dad's mic up.
I was just saying, still, just turn my mic off, please.
Oh, I can't while I'm recording.
Oh,
I
okay.
can only adjust. I can turn it all the way down, the gain, all the way down.
I mean, you hear all because this one's a shotgun, those are two direct ones, and we're getting the construction sounds.
right, the routers and the other stuff down there.
Let's get it closer to your. As long as we get it closer, and then
All right.
let's lean it
I
in
mean,
a little bit.
yeah. It's okay. I mean, yes.
Better?
I mean, you hear all the.
I turned your dad's down.
Oh, I guess it's that one.
It's probably that one.
I'm
Oh, that's good.
sound good?
You sound good. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
There. That's
As long as
okay.
as long as you lean in there a
Okay.
bit. Okay, this is probably better.
much better.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Little.
Not the best. You should record it over there.
No, those little adjustments. A lot of time I find in life it's those little adjustments that will get us right on track. Those little adjustments that turning your farming in just square plots to contour farming to working with the land, or in the ways of AI or technology, we have a good thing, but then it's those little adjustments that make a lot of sense to create that world that we actually want, where we retain our information, our data, these positive nutrients. Ben, what do you?
You have to be able to analyze those adjustments too. Like, is something wrong here or not? Like, yeah, that knowledge that your grandfather had was kind of like generational knowledge. I wonder where he got his poem, or was just inspired by it. It was just And like thinking about the plants themselves, they don't know any other soil but the soil that they kind of grew in, right? And humans are the same as well. Like we don't know any other knowledge than we don't know any other life than only what we grew up with. Like, yeah, I mean, there are probably a lot of rich analogies there.
I really love that, Ben. The plants in the soil don't know what they haven't been exposed to, just as we as humans and in our own childhoods and life, we only know what we were exposed to growing up and being raised and being nurtured with in that sense, that nourishment, that sunlight, those pieces that make us strong, living beings.
I guess that's a job of a parent, right? Is to give as much nutrients as you can to your kid, metaphorically speaking.
To plant us in the spots that won't be too harsh from the sun or like this,
right.
Like gang violence. Like, do you want to plant your child right next to, a bunch of violence or like other strife and turmoil, or somewhere that's safe? Much like planting a garden, are you going to plant it next, like in the direct sun and harsh environments, or somewhere that it can be tended and nurtured and loved in safety?
Were you planted in a monocrop, you would say, or planted among many different types of other plants? Or, it's like, and that goes into diversity as well, feeding the multi-generational aspect. But there's so many different analogies there.
One of the interesting things is the word indigenous really means of the land. And so like the Native Americans, there was all these different tribes, actually very large population, and all the tribes were very specific to the areas where they lived. So when all the different climates and areas in the United States, the mountains and the valleys and the plains and everything, that's where they are of the land.
I feel like that's what that poem was about, too, the connection to the land.
Right, exactly. So every human is indigenous to somewhere on the planet. So.
Do you like it when people say, like, we're all from the same, or we're all
cut from the same cloth?
No, that's what I want to say. Like, we're all, like, from the planet Earth, and we're all pretty much the same. Or are you, like, we're from specific, like, where exactly are we? How are we supposed to identify with? Are we the state I'm from, the country I'm from, the city I'm from, or the world? We're all worldlings.
I like this. This is
how are we supposed to identify you? Yeah,
Earthlings.
Earthlings?
Humankind. Are we? I mean, we're all saying we're all humans. We're all humankind. We're all on Earth. We're all Earthlings, indigenous Earthlings.
Yeah, but that becomes less and less meaningful.
How so?
As you go out.
Right.
Go out from the Earth.
Because we can't identify each other by fellow Earthling instead of in a loving way. We're all part of one big family. That's true, but
well, here's where the conflict comes in: is when you have a patriarchal, dominating, authoritarian government that draws lines, and we call this our land, even though we might have come from somewhere else. And for the most part, the original inhabitants of that land have either been removed or genocide or other things like that. So then we kind of come in and we think we know better, and we kind of really mess things up. You can't grow asparagus on the North Pole, so It's kind of like that, there's some that probably would try it, But anyway, yes, we need to be aware of where we are, and that just because we think we're the boss doesn't mean that we're actually going to do things very well.
Like you said, be a good steward of the land.
Right.
Custodian.
So.
Well, the first thing that rang there was, as we, as humankind, start to evolve and nurture this presence of technology and AI, artificial intelligence, and that new tool that we as humans, as farmers, have to cultivate our environment and society, how much are we moving into this space thinking that we know, thinking that we can make these lines in the sands and lines in borders separating this and that? Will the same thing happen? Are we doing the same thing moving into this world of AI? And how responsible are we actually when we're starting to open up these new tools, this new process, this new renaissance of exploration in the field?
I feel like farming is heavily affected by technology. Heavily, from what I know. I mean, with the drones that I've studied very little bit. I mean, drones are used to monitor like the size. They have like multispectral drones, can tell, all different kinds of the chemical makeup of the plants, and it even reads the size of the leaves to tell when to water it, how much water it needs. It's incredible, like the impact of like machine vision and technology in general towards farming.
I mean, if we look at the very
Probably soil
beginning,
analysis as well, but
the beginning implementations of technology into farming, the world changed when the plow was introduced into culture.
If we come up with the technology, we're just gonna how can we use this in farming?
From the plow and planting our fields to now a flying drone and scanning and and the analysis of the size of the leaf to figure out when to water it.
Steam engine too, yeah. I mean, I feel like the steam engine coincided with the Industrial Revolution, right? And because of that, we needed less labor. We were able to. Everyone was like, "Well, we don't need these slaves anymore. We don't need as many slaves anymore, so we can."
I mean, even if we're not looking at slave trade and that energy it takes to make the farming, say a horse, before we were so much connected in with nature and that connection with nature, connection with the animals to work with us to use this tool to cultivate the land. Then we go to that steam engine, now we're in a tractor. We don't have to deal with horses. We lose that connection with the animals, and now we're just sitting on a tractor using this technology to do the work. Now we don't even have the connection to machinery anymore.
The land will farm itself. I think that's what you're getting at.
We're moving in the direction where, yes, the technology and the tools and the machines and the drones and the information and the technology, that next level of technology, we can simply program the farm to farm itself.
Would you want that? Would you want the farm to have like you've probably seen a lot of technological change in your life, and how is that working with your psychology of farming and like the enjoyment of it, if there is an enjoyment?
Well, it's not really the psychology of it. It's after you do all this work in technology, is it respecting the earth and allowing it to produce its best?
By psychology, I mean like you're losing. I mean that you're losing, like, say, a part of yourself that you're putting into it for each job that technology does. So do you feel that like you're putting less work into it? It's taking away because you're not doing as much work. It's taking away from the meaning of farming.
No. You're using. Well, it's being money driven. So you keep fighting the dominating attitude is that you're going to, we're trying to tell the land that we're going to make you produce as much as you can, as fast as you can,
Yeah.
so we can make the most money as we can. And that is insane. And that is what's killing our planet, because we have bare soil that gets up to 100 degrees, whereas if you have all these cover crops on it, it's like 70 degrees or less. Once you get above 70, 80 degrees, the microbes start dying, and so then the plants don't get food, and then they run out of water, and then we try to genetically modify the plants so they can grow
GMO.
grow on GMO or grow on, or just we use the chemicals to kill everything, and then and the plants are only producing just starches and there's nothing, it's just empty calories, and that's why we got all these diseases, because most of it is because of nutrition. There's no nutrition in all these fast foods and everything else. I mean, it's insane.
It's all empty. These empty calories, empty foods, nothing with real value or nutrition in these foods that we continue to consume. And if we are what we eat, we should really be caring a lot more about this as a people and taking care of our soil so we can take care of our people.
It's like what you put in your body is like the most intimate thing that you can do. I mean, you're so connected with the food. Are you anti-GMO or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I don't need to think about that one.
And why is that?
Well, most of the crops have been genetically engineered so that we can put all these chemicals on it without killing the plant that we think we're going to make the most money off. And that's what's, like our corn, soybeans, and the crop is called rapeseed, but it's where we get our canola from. And so, yeah, because we genetically modify so that it'll have a bigger yield and not die, but all the weeds die, or whatever. If we put a cover crop on, it'll die, and if we just a green manure crop, we call it, over the winter, like rye or something like that. But then the farmers, they'll just burn it down, they say, with
What is the benefit of, well, what's the difference between like a GMO and like a crop that you get from another place? Or say if you're growing grapes from like Argentina and you're in France or something, like it is kind of just another strain of a grape that's somebody else. And instead of growing somebody else, it was just done in a lab, but the lab was not evolved. What's the difference? Like, is there a fundamental difference between that?
Well, everywhere you go, the soil is a little bit different, and especially like grapes, and that's why some of these vineyards, they make the best Pinot Noir, and another one makes the best whatever, in the different wines, and different grapes, grow better, and so then they get a reputation for such high quality flavor and taste and all those kind of things. So, you'd have to talk to a wine connoisseur they tell you where the best wines are grown and things, but otherwise you just get Boone's Farm.
It has helped out some farmers. My dad's an agricultural journalist, and I've heard him interview people he's interviewed like university professors who help out with like genetically modifying the crops itself.
Right.
He's interviewed them. And they're growing like these cinnamon apples, cinnamon tasting. I think that's what they call it. They have like a hint of cinnamon. And then, yeah, it's like, I don't think he really frames it in a bad way at all. Like, do you grow like organic crops, or are you completely anti-GMO, anti-organic, or anti any kind of pesticides at all, or it's like organic, non-GMO?
Yes, pesticides. The thing is, they're broad spectrum pesticides.
Oh.
Just like if you got an infection, the doctor will give you a broad spectrum, antimicrobial to get rid of some sort of infection. But when it does that, it kills a lot of your bacteria that's in your gut. And so then those bacteria are making vitamins and all kinds of other stuff that now you're not getting, that give you immunity, and then you get leaky gut, and then you get this, and then they give you more medication. Like, it's where anybody survives, So when you put all these pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, all those are, anything that has "cide" on the end is toxic. It's a poison, and then you're killing off all the beneficials along with just one that you don't like, and then you're killing off 100 that are actually helping you. So it's insanity.
Yeah.
Again, it seems like I keep saying that, but.
Wow. I mean, is there something specific to Wisconsin? Because Wisconsin's pretty north. It probably doesn't have as many pesticides as California.
It's got
its share. All right. I don't know.
Well,
Everywhere's got something, and everywhere that's got something,
But
they've got an excuse to kill it.
Is it more work for you to not use pesticides? I mean, how much more work is it?
well, when you have healthy soil, you have healthy plants, and the plants are then going to be immune to many of the diseases that the other crops get. And that's why they keep spraying them, because the plant is totally at the mercy of these insects unless you kill them all. And when you kill the harmful ones, you're killing the good ones that could be helping them. So
as long as you clean your room and you haven't, as long as you do the right thing, basically buy the plant, it'll be easier on you. So it may be like you said, like a little bit more work up front, but it'll be less work in the end because you have a healthy plant.
exactly, yes.
You're teaching the plants to fish. Instead of giving them that everyday treatment, that everyday just like fish, here you go to eat, giving them that yearly, seasonally pesticide to kill off and control what's being killed and what's going to live, you're nourishing that foundation that the plant's coming from, creating that healthy, biodiverse soil and system for it to take care of itself. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Like that.
You still fertilize, right? Still fertilize. That's different from pesticide. I'm kind of.
Well, I was just at a meeting the other day, and this farmer for 9 years has not been using any fertilizers because by these cover crops that he's planting and everything else, he might be getting a little bit less on his yield, but he's saving like $2 million a year just on fuel and all the stuff that he's saved because his crops are organic.
And this is an example of these practices that can be put into place that will help heal the land, give us better product and produce to put in our body, and that the longevity and sustainability of these practices will help not only our generation, but generations to come.
And for me, it's just like doing the hard thing. Yeah, it turns out better. It's like taking the stairs instead of the elevator, or however metaphor you want to do it. But like, you're gonna, yeah.
I think right now, I mean, still we're in a generation or a time where there's that instant gratification.
Yep. And people want to sell you everything too.
We just discovered like DoorDash. You know, before we thought delivery was a neat thing. Now there's like DoorDash where you can just think of anything you want and then there'll be somebody that'll just drop it off to your door. You know, this instant gratification of, I want this, I want that. Well, okay, I'll put it into the phone and a little bit later, here it is at my door. Thanks.
Think of the gas burn just to deliver. You're taking
A Twix.
just to deliver like a burrito.
Yeah.
My gosh. Produce the burrito is enough energy of itself, but like to transport the burrito, I mean, come on, you can make your own and it's cost a lot less.
But people, they don't have the time, they don't have the energy to make their own burrito anymore, do they? They need to push a button and have that burrito in an hour or less.
That's wild. Well, yeah, I mean, I did see something about like how drones would make it much more efficient this week, where Zipline is supposed to have a product where like it's going to deliver something, say like, you know, burrito is our example, but like, yeah, it delivers, say, the drone and then just drops it to you from the sky, which is a heck of a lot more like efficient energy wise than like a 15,000 pound car.
And that'll be the big seller of being able to sell
Next
all
thing.
these automated drones flying through our airways and airspace, dropping off, delivering everything, instead of the worker, the employed worker, spending the gas and the greenhouse effects of all of that energy usage.
Should we be skeptical of any technology in a capitalistic environment? Because I feel like a lot of it's just companies trying to sell you stuff, you know, pesticide.
Well, I would say that the corporations do have an upper hand because they control the markets.
Money flow.
They're making money because the farmers that are producing it are not making any more money now than they did 40, 50 years ago. And every time the price of a commodity goes up, the corporations take the cream off the what they get, and the farmer still gets basically the same thing. So farmers are not getting rich.
How are they
Farmers,
taking the cream off the crop? Literally the cream of the crop. Or-
well, because they've got all these, you know, they've got all these big factories, they got all this, and then they got their investors in their company, and they want to make the money. All the investors that are investing in these companies, and so they won't get investors. They won't get investors unless they're paying out big dividends, you know. So
it's just completely corporatized.
yeah, corporatized, and basically the farmers and the working whatever citizen, doesn't matter if it's farming or, you know, a lot of production. You hear a lot of stuff about all these, you know, like Amazon Prime, you know, and the employees, you know, striking and this and that, and their you know, their health, and they're working these long hours and everything else, and so there's, you know, so that's just one example, but, you know, nothing.
In your experience, Thomas, have you been able to see alternative practices that could be implemented as an option or as an alternative? If the corporate-driven ways are producing these unhealthy effects, and using a more regenerative principle would create the healthier effects, what are maybe some of these steps that could go towards healing the land and producing a more harmonious system with nature and our food?
Maybe the Amish do it well. Sorry.
Well, I've got some answers, but probably the majority of the people wouldn't like him. So
Exactly what we're here for.
The hard hidden truths, the pieces that are hard to chew, the harsh realities here and now.
well, the culture that we're living in, the authoritarian, dominating culture, is basically run by the corporations. They're the ones in power. They're telling our representatives what to vote for. And we spend extreme amounts of money on military engagements around the world, and it is a needless thing to do. Well, you talk to corporations, they think it's essential because that's the only way they can stay in power and get the money off all the whatever there is that's being changed hands or whatever, the product or whatever. So we want to keep countries under control where we get our our minerals or whatever to make our cell phones and our lithium batteries and get our oil, and so it's just endless. You name any product and there's corporation involved.
Land. What about land? I mean,
as
long as you own.
Well, yeah, you can own your land, but then the government still taxes you and this and that, and then you still only, whatever crop you produce, if it's any kind of commodity, then, you basically gotta...
deal with the corporations, deal with the devil.
You can't, it's not a market, well, the market economy is not controlled by the farmers. If they produce more, they get paid less.
Oh, right.
And
subsidies.
Whereas, and then they, and then a lot of, then the government only pays crop insurance on the commodities. It doesn't pay crop insurance on a lot of the organic produce. So that's why organic is higher. Costs more because it's not being subsidized by the USDA.
We were talking about this the other day when the organic commodities are not insured, but the non-organic, all the GMO and the kind, those are insured. So whether you produce a full yielding crop or if half of that was lost to a storm, they're still getting paid for that whole crop. So they can throw out all of their crop and go to the insurance and say, oh, crop insurance, I still get paid for, not producing this unorganic, unhealthy commodity. And so it keeps them in this box of being provided for, staying in their world. It's a rigged system. And so I think we were going back to Thomas on, do you see these alternatives? Because right now you're seeing a corporate-led, capitalist-run, money-driven system. What's the alternative?
Well, we could just let it run its course and
Have the trees
half of the human race is going to go extinct because we're all going to starve. So, and because climate is going to fix that for us. Just like I was saying, with hot soil, the heat that's reflected off hot soil goes up and warms the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't need all this methane and carbon dioxide and everything else in the air.
Is it technology that gives the corporations so much power, or is it money that they have? Or is money technology?
Or is it the system and the box and the game?
Well, it's a combination. Created? It's a combination of the whole thing. It's basically they've got a weapon and they make all the ammunition. So and nobody else can have any of the ammunition.
you'd think that like being a farmer could be one of the awesome small businesses you could have, but even that is being overrun by huge corporations. Like, you think of a restaurant too. In the Midwest, there aren't many like mom and pop restaurants. It's just like franchise after franchise after franchise, chain. And strip malls everywhere.
And that's only in the last 50, 70 years that
Yeah.
we've seen franchises blow up. I mean,
It's not common.
I mean, Dad, you've seen how you grew up in a world with like maybe one McDonald's. Now they're on every corner, and people have an app to push a button to get their same order, ready for them when they pull up.
Yeah, they didn't have drive-throughs back when.
Right? Roller skating, pull up, with your burger and fries. That used to be the drive-through.
No, but the thing is, one alternative is for people to buy local producers, support the local
Farmers markets,
farmers markets,
CSA.
Yeah, exactly. Because then the money that they spend, they know who it's going for, and they can trust that the food that they're getting. If it comes in on a truck from a state away, it's probably raised hydroponically or whatever, and
We should start a global corporation that just makes everything local.
That might be an answer. To corporatize local connections.
Subscribe to your local farmer. I think they do have that in Europe or something, where you can
Right.
just get something from your farm, directly from your farmer, farm to table type thing.
Yep.
So, like,
Farm to table.
The farmer delivers X amount of crops to.
Yeah.
Have you done that before?
Field to fork.
Oh, yeah. Sounds more intense than farm to table.
No, I raised sheep for a while, and that was organic, grass fed, and I would sell ground lamb at the local cheese store, and so.
It's more legwork, I guess, because you have to make all those connections. But is that the most challenging part of it? Just coming up with the connections?
Connections. Well, they're just a customer that came to the cheese store, so yeah, I didn't sell a big quantity, but and then there's other people, that they have a CSA and they have different ways, but I never got big into that. But still, I was involved, and I bought local a lot of food, so
You just go local. But I feel like the flow of money is just going. It's still going to flow towards those big corporations, because that's where all the 401ks are. Like, if I'm a middle income earner, my 401k is being put towards BlackRock and Vanguard and all those, and I don't even know it. I don't even know where it's going a lot of the times. If I'm a middle income, and then Vanguard is investing in all these other corporations that are like trying to take over this stuff. So it's just like, if like the middle class was able to invest in, like, say, peer-to-peer thing, like the middle class, if the middle class was able to invest in the middle class, I think that would open up a lot of opportunities as well. Instead of only having to put their money in these big corporations and the markets.
It's hard to try to take down or change a system when doing so threatens your very livelihood or future. If you're saying people's 401ks, their Social Security and their promise of a retirement
Pensions,
is all tied up in the system that is dependent on continuing that capitalist machine, how can all of those people support, like my father talked about my great grandfather, he had to do a season, a 2 season, 3 seasons, while everybody else around was like, what are you doing? You're just planting cover crops and then you're just destroying it and putting it back into the soil? You're foolish. Except then when you see what that work has then done, and then what you're able to create after that time of transition.
Yeah, I think it's crazy that we can't really invest in each other. Like the only middle income investment I can make is in myself. I really can't give any money to you because I'm not not an accredited investor, which I don't have like $1 million, or I don't make $250,000 a year, or however much they have to make 800,000. But anyway, you have to be an accredited investor to get private equity in another company. And like that's really, you have to have a lot of money to be an accredited investor and be very qualified to do that. And that's a huge bar to be able to put in money and get equity to another person's business. I feel like if we could do that, and the U.S. is like one of the only developed countries that has that policy as well. It's like that requirement. And that's something I learned when I was doing crypto, where like we have a lot of restrictions where you can't just invest in somebody else's project because of those restrictions. Because of scams, I guess they want to protect you, but still you can go to a casino and put all your money on red, black, whatever number you want to, no problem. They're not protecting you from that. But that's kind of off topic.
Well, what I'm hearing is regulations and parameters to keep you inside a box. And we're talking about in one, what can we do to change a system, or how is a system changing, and where is the dysfunction or illness in the system, and how can we address that illness? Because I mean, right now, especially right now, greenhouse effects and climate control and climate change is all the rage, right? And so when I hear soil is getting burnt to a crisp and all the life is being completely washed away and losing all these nutrients because of these practices, and because of it, the soil and the ground temperature itself is holding this heat and reflecting that heat back up. That is a greater impact to our climate change than, yes, any car, any cow producing methane, any carbon footprint of leaving your car on for an extra 5 minutes, 3 minutes to get that air conditioner up to snuff. It is the soil, all the farmland that is reflecting this heat, holding this heat, that is creating these mass climate changes. And if we can address the soil, bring life and biodiversity and the micronutrients back into the soil, we will have greatly helped and made a change for our climate change situations. I kind of want to hear that poem again. I want to hear my great grandfather's poem, and then I want to hear the poem that ChatGPT created. It's like, this is the poetry and the insight that it is now being passed down 1, 2, 3, 4 to my son 5 generations. From working with the soil, cultivating life, and that connection with life, with the world around you, versus what technology and AI might produce from a prompt and an idea. Thomas? What is this poem called?
This one here is a different one, but it's by my grandfather again, and it's called The Creative Legacy. We farmers are just passers-by, here by the grace of God. We have a job to till the soil and preserve that sod. We have a right to make a living where others before us have trod, but ever taking and not giving will never preserve that dear old sod. Generations yet are coming to till where we have trod. They have a right to make a living, a right to that same old sod. For them, fields of luscious pasture, erosion stopped in time, were just passing masters, The land is theirs, not mine.
Stewardship again.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
quite Woody Guthrie.
Passages of luscious
It
pastures.
does remind me of a Woody. He was that same time. It's like this land is your land. This land is my land type poem.
Right? This land is not mine, but we are these passing masters. You know, passing this inheritance down and down till where that line till where the next will follow after.
It's great.
And that's beautiful. Thank you for
It's the
sharing
first
that.
one again. You can read it again if you want. The first one, if you want. We could get a clean one. It's great. But I think it sounds great. Or I could read the ChatGPT one now.
Yeah, we'll go ChatGPT and then back.
Okay.
Yeah.
O palm tree, tall with leaves of emerald green, a symbol of the tropics and sun, thy presence on the shore, a regal queen, a masterpiece of nature never done. Thy fronds do sway, a graceful dance they make, to songs of ocean breeze and seagull's cry, a sight that leaves the mind completely awake, and heart with joy so full it seems to fly. Thou art solace to thy weary soul, and refuge to the ones that seek thy shade, a friend to those who like to be made whole, a place where sweetest memories are made. O palm tree, with leaves of emerald green, thou art wonder and a beauty seen.
Well, we'll leave it up to you all. Please tell us which one spoke to your heart more clearly. Which poem rings true with you?
Well, obviously, I think your dad, or Thomas's poem rings clearly more for me, because you can just, it's the generations echoing. I mean, it's almost his voice. It's part of his dad, it's part of his grandfather, but you know, it's part of who he is and his life philosophy too. It's just but I mean, that goes to say, like, this is just an AI bot with just an understanding of words that might fit together nicely.
And I suppose if you gave it this transformer enough prompts, you know, with enough like nuance, you know, can we still create something to that level which we just heard from Carl?
We could prompt chat. We could ask ChatGPT to write Carl's poem. And be like, what is meaningful to you? What is the soil? Write a meaningful poem. Then it might write about like its data sets. Like, 'cause the data set is the soil that ChatGPT has grown in.
There we go. So we can use the poem itself as the training data to produce more results on that level.
I mean, you could ask ChatGPT whatever you want to, and the result often surprises me.
Awesome.
And it's just like, yeah, that result in particular. But I mean, it just doesn't understand the experience. It just understands data to a very high degree. It'll never understand the human experience.
And I think that's what's making Thomas's grandfather, his poem, so special, is that this was maybe a lifetime of this man growing, and his poetry, you know, at the end of his life experience. And now, having passed this poem and that knowledge down, he's synthesizing all of this experience into these key gems of what's important to pass down. What are these principles? What are these concepts? How is my life so important to pass down to my ancestors, my legacy,
Right.
my children and their children and their children?
What few words are great that I need to pass down. It's so special.
And the power to synthesize a human experience truly can only come from a
Yeah.
human.
It's like we don't remember people so much as their words, the few words that they leave behind. I mean, that's why I think it's special to be able to write, especially like your grandfather did. Man, it's a great skill to have. To be able to distill your own thoughts like that. Powerful thing. And that's probably why it moves us to do something like this, is like we'll have that. Or we'll at least be able to look at things more clearly going forward. It's kind of a tool for reflection as well. But yeah, do you know what a Turing test is?
The Turing test?
It's like, yeah.
As in the man who was putting forth a series of questions to find out if a computer was a human or a robot?
Yeah.
If a human was a human?
Well, if it was kind of a test to see how well an AI can perform and how well an AI is distinguishable from a human. Like, so if the human can ask it questions and it can't tell the difference, the human can't tell the difference between the AI and if it's another human, then it'll pass the Turing test. So I think, and like, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, it's kind of outdated, but I think it's a profound test, because as I read that poem, it has an effect on me. It may not be, I may be able to tell it, I don't know if it matters that it came from AI, but it's still kind of like stirs something. I think we are the measuring stick to AI. It's not whether or not like we know what it's made out of and then we know how it's done. It's like we are the actual measurement, which is like not many things are measured like that, which is why it's so unintuitive though.
Part of me is feeling what we were talking earlier on the GMO foods or these empty nutrient produce. You know, we are what we eat. We become these empty vessels, like health-wise, nutrient-wise. And the same can go then for, say, the human-made art versus the AI art. Is your AI poem, yes, it touches you. Just as if I eat a tomato with zero nutrients, like I'm still eating a tomato, and that BLT, so that tasted, good, maybe not the fullest, but it fed me. Versus being fed by, say, the human poem and that piece of art or that input that's really nutritious, that's filled with human experience and that human connection. They're both tomatoes. One's gonna give you more nutrients and health and life from it than the other. And
Chemically made up, they seem very similar, but one is made in a different way. One is made with work. It's more sustainable towards the greater goal. Like, I feel like that's what I'm getting at. It's just like the way it's made matters. It's not just what's made, but it's like the way.
There we go.
Made.
And I think those synthetic, versions of the real will always just be a copy and reflection of that real. And I think we need to get back to the realness.
The old ways.
The old ways. Some of the old ways. Don't forget the old ways.
All right, I'll read another poem.
All right.
All right, if he got to read two, I'll read another.
Please.
This is kind of a joke, though. This is by me. Cut this out. It's kind of a. All right, back to the old ways. What do you think of this? Ready? Back to the old ways, when a man was a man and a woman was a woman. Things were better back then, when we knew what to do and we knew what we shouldn't. We got a million different choices in today's society. I don't know about you, but none sound good to me. Back to the old ways, young man. So go back to the old ways, young man. Get a good woman, make a home. Find some good work and read the good book. Walk with God and you'll never be alone. Or, no, with God you'll never walk alone. Back to the old days when we stood a chance against the machines. Life was hard back then, but AI wasn't telling us how to be. Times are moving so fast. Don't know how to keep the pace. Nobody needs each other anymore. We're all living in virtual space. That's it.
It's a lot more than just that's it. Thank you.
Let's cut that out, but I just wanted to read that. It's gives it back to the old ways, and I was like, oh man, I should read that poem.
Thank you for
It
reading
wasn't-
it.
It really wasn't a poem.
I'd call that applicable.
Yeah.
Is there something stirring in you, Thomas?
Well, you might want to cut this one out too.
Yeah.
So I hope I don't offend anybody here, but Mother Earth speaks. I am a woman that knows her own agenda. Earth and sky, hills, rivers, lakes and oceans, flora and fauna, growing and feeding one another. I say to man, take what you must, but do not destroy. Nourish and feed me, and I will protect you, but do not abuse me. I offer you my virgin breast and all the delights of my virtue. All I ask in return is your acknowledgement and gratitude. Just don't abuse and destroy me. Man, you are an anathema, an insult to anything you claim as your origin. You first admire, desire, lust and cajole and take the best. Soon you want even more and take me by force, gouging, scraping, digging, stripping my flesh until my very blood is gone. Then you cast me aside and call me worthless, bitch, as if it is all my fault. You asshole, you cowardly, spineless bastard. You take everything and in return you piss and shit on me. Even in death you try to avoid the inevitable. You hide in your sealed coffins and deprive me of your bones. You can't escape to the stars. Eventually I'll take the last bit of you and return it to myself. I'll pull every molecule of your existence deep into my core and return them back to the basic elements. I will renew myself and remove your filth. I will cleanse myself, and once again, I will be new. The virgin eggs that I have kept hidden from you will bloom, and once again, I will be beautiful.
Who was that by? What?
That was by Thomas Carlyle Olthafer.
Don't take my last name.
Oh, that's Thomas.
I don't want anybody on my case.